Trying to make a call. I can't find where to put my nickels in. Guess I should have called collect. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Let's wrap up our look at 1980s Beach Boys Greatest Hits packages. Last time we talked about the 2 LP set Made in USA, which served as kind of a anthology, or an anthology in some ways, covering basically the group's career from their first major hit up through the present day. Something that I've often thought about, and maybe some other Beach Boys fans have too, is what if a double LP set was condensed into one record? How would, say, Endless Summer or 10 Years of Harmony look if they were only one LP instead of 2? What would they keep? What would they get rid of? Who knows? Well, with Made in USA, we actually have the rare chance to see kind of what might have been if this had been a single record set. And so the subject of today, 25 years of good vibrations, the Beach Boys Sunkist 25th Anniversary Tour. A single record celebration of the Beach Boys' 25th anniversary, also known as their silver anniversary, released exclusively on LP through Brother Records and brought to you by Sunkist Orange Drink. There you go. Or orange soda or orange pop, whatever you like to call it. Sunkist was doing a lot with the Beach Boys at the time. They were using songs like Good Vibrations and California Girls to promote Sunkist drinks, drinking up good vibrations, you know, among other things. Pretty interesting stuff. Of course, Mike Love went on record, and you can find the clip on YouTube, as you can their old Sunkist ads, of Mike Love denouncing Sunkist, saying he'd rather drink the radiator fluid from his broken down Land Rover than he would consume Sunkist pop. So, who knows in that regard. Let's read off the track list actually, then I'll show you the record. So, well, Made in USA had a lot of tracks. There aren't too many here. Side 1 has only 5. We have Rock and Roll to the Rescue, California Dreamin', Runaway, California Girls and Wouldn't It Be Nice, flip it over for Good Vibrations, Fun Fun Fun, Get You Back, and the Beach Boys medley. So the first 2 we know were new for 1986, both of which were charting singles, both of which were included on Made in USA, as you can see in the hype sticker, and both of which were featured at one time or another on 12-inch singles. Here's the big Rock and Roll to the Rescue 12-inch single. Pretty cool. Runaway is exclusive to this release and remains so even up to today, the only place to officially get it. We'll come back to Runaway later. And then we have quite a few oldies coupled with their newest, maybe not newest hit single, but certainly the one that brought them back into the fold, made them cool again in the 1980s, Get You Back, which was also on Made in USA, and then something from the early 80s that was very successful with Beach Boys Medley. Beach Boys Medley was not on Made in USA. So even though they were kind of going for a single record version approach, or individual record version approach, they didn't stick to it entirely. They didn't just snip tracks off of Made in USA. But with only 9 songs, it's a pretty brief record. You can see it uses the Brother Records label, which is kind of unusual for this point. We see mostly Capitol and Caribou around this time. So it's kind of nice to see this cool orange Brother record bit. I like it a lot. And if you look on the back, you can see indicators of where they licensed the other songs from. So this was a collaborative project. Somebody paid someone else to use these songs. Really, the big draw maybe isn't so much the album or the track list, but rather the collector's book that came with it. This is very similar to recent Beach Boys books we've seen included with various albums and stuff, like Feel Flows and Sail on Sailor. Same kind of style. So I'll take you through the book real quick, and then we'll talk about the one kind of unusual track on the Sunkist album. We get these nice photo collages, and then writing both the book and the back of the sleeve are by Susan Fry. So we start off with how The Beach Boys are scions of national pride, and how Getcha Back was a big new single that topped the US Adult Contemporary chart. I don't think that's true. I think it peaked in the top 5. I don't think it topped it. There are a few typos in here and a few things that I think are mistaken, but for the most part it kind of captures the spirit there. I would say, oh, that's something I didn't mention before I turn the page. I like how the border is all different Beach Boys songs. We see some early photos of them and a lot of kind of Americana, you know, pop culture kind of photos here. If you turn the page, there's quite a bit of talk about 1960s culture, how it went from very conservative and 50s-like to very countercultural, you know, avant-garde, controversial kind of stuff. Endless Harmony photo there for you. And then that moves into people like the Kennedys and Ronald Reagan, who were seen as, you know, entertainment icons just as much as political ones. Very interesting write-up, and a kind of an odd way to start what I guess you could consider liner notes for a Beach Boys album. Then we get into somewhat more conventional territory, talking about, very similarly to the Made in USA album, the group's history, their influences, and whatnot. Another nice photo collage, this time with major world events going on around the side. You can see some photos of Vietnam and the moon landing and things like that in there. Something it does claim is that Barbara Ann was recorded by the Beach Boys as a salute to Barbie dolls, which I've never heard before. I don't know if that's true or if that's something Susan assumed or made up. And of course the discussion leads into the British invasion, talks about the Beatles and the rivalry between the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and the Beach Boys' success in Europe at the time, which is very true. Just as the Beatles were bigger than the Beach Boys in the US at one point, so the Beach Boys were bigger than the Beatles in the UK and Europe at one point. So there you go. And we have a section called Tales of Change, which talks about, of course, Vietnam some more and its influence on pop music and whatnot. We have a section that talks about the Beach Boys' failed tour with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Here it says that Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination was the catalyst for the group to end the tour. I've never heard that. I don't know if that's so. I just thought it was because people came to see a rock concert and were disappointed when an old guru came out and talked, but what do I know? And if you flip on forward, we get that ever-popular Beach Boys 80s slogan, America's band, the Beach Boys. 25 years of good vibrations and fabulous tours throughout our country, and so on. Many fans dismiss this now as being kind of pretentious, but at the time it was really the Beach Boys' main sort of marketing strategy, with them being the group to represent America. James Watt, who was Reagan's Secretary of Interior, is trashed in this book. He was the man who tried to ban the Beach Boys from giving free July 4th concerts, claiming that they were a bad influence and attracted the wrong kinds of people and so on. So Susan rips him a new one in here about how even members of his own party mocked him for his short-sightedness and so on, which I did get a kick out of. And it takes us, just like the last one, or just like the Made in USA notes, right up to the present day. Talks about some popular Beach Boys shows and how they became members of the counterculture, their performances in Central Park and at the Big Sur Folk Festival, things like that. The documentary, American Band, gets a big shout out. Very good documentary too, I highly recommend it. One of the best, I think, about the Beach Boys. Pretty cool. And then about how, because they're so relevant to pop culture, Sunkist loves them, and there are many Beach Boys tribute groups. The group Shout, pictured here, gets quite a write-up, as do mentions of Beach Boys activewear, endorsed with their logos and supported by the group themselves. And you can join BB Fun, Beach Boys Freaks United, at this cool mail-in order form and buy their records and things like that. And we get a little photo selection of the group there. Dennis Wilson's death is mentioned and is described as being something that wasn't going to end the group, even though Dennis was perhaps the truest definition of a Beach Boy amongst the group. So, pretty interesting things there, just in terms of being a surfer and whatnot. So they don't just gloss over that part. They kind of make sure he has a legacy and is very much part of this album. Even his solo album, Pacific Ocean Blue, gets a really nice shout out. So, pretty interesting stuff, only released to vinyl. Let's talk Runaway real quick. It is the only song that remains exclusive to this release. Everything else was also a single, also on Made in USA, or in the case of Beach Boys Medley, Sunshine Dream, or a single. But Al Jardine, in this 2020 issue of Endless Summer Quarterly magazine, wrote about their cover of Runaway, recorded at Blossom Music Center in 1982. I've never been to Blossom Music Center, but it's actually only about an hour's drive from me. He wrote a blurb about it. You can see a black and white photo of the album there, about how he wanted it to be a single, and it was mixed for a single and ultimately just not used. How much he liked the song Runaway, and indeed the back of the album mentions that he masterminded the whole recording of that. If you remember, Made in USA called him the king of covers, so here we're building on there. Runaway, of course, the Del Shannon classic, I wonder, I wonder, that kind of thing. And the Beach Boys do a nice job. It had been, well, maybe not had been, but it had been part of their live set in the 60s, but we wouldn't hear that as fans until the 2010s, when Made in California included a version of Runaway, and then Made in Chicago in 2015, a couple years later. But anyway, in this magazine article, Al seems a bit sad that it kind of just stalled here. A lot of versions on YouTube of this Runaway track cut off the beginning where the Beach Boys talk about how it's being recorded for a live album. Perhaps there had been some 80s live album in the works. At the time, we would eventually get Live at Networth in 1980. We'd get that in the early 2000s. But an interesting bit there, you know, something that could have been and just didn't get fulfilled. So, of course, this is on the cusp of the Beach Boys' big return to popularity. It wasn't in 1986, it was in 1988. And we all know what song precipitated that. Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take ya. And really, Kokomo is a subject, and Still Cruising, the album it's on, those are subjects for another day, I think. So we won't pick up again with greatest hits packages until the 90s. The late 80s didn't give us a whole lot of new stuff to work with. In the late 80s, the Beach Boys collaborated with artists like Joan Jett and the Fat Boys, and Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and appeared on different things like that before Kokomo made them popular again. And again, we'll get to Kokomo next time as we break into the 90s with 20 Good Vibrations. And please comment below if you like Sunkist soda, or if you have any recollection of this record. This is one that I probably didn't have to cover. I could have snipped it out, because like American Summer or 1970s Good Vibrations, it's very much a curio, very much a museum piece, not essential listening, not an essential part of anyone's record library, but it's cool in its own right. And I really wanted to cover it here, and it's the closest to a single disc version of Made in USA that we've ever had. You know, a decade ago it was very popular for people to make their own Beach Boys albums and upload them to YouTube, kind of reshuffle songs and remix songs, and I'm sure copyright claims have since doomed that venture, but it's kind of nice to have it here, have something similar here, I should say. You know, that what if this was one record? Oh, we'd get something like that. So, pretty cool stuff, and for authenticity's sake, both in this video and the last, wore my 1980s Beach Boys hat, signed by Mike Love and Bruce Johnston, and also my genuine 1980s Beach Boys tour t-shirt. Our next couple videos won't be about the group. We'll take a quick break from the Beach Boys, look at some other things, but please hang around, and I always love seeing you, and I especially love reading the wonderful comments that you leave. And until next time, my friends, go out there and have a delicious diet Sunkist to keep California slim. This message not brought to you by Sunkist.